I'm not leaving without my lieutenant. The whole side of his head is gone. Petty Officer Michael Thornton stares down at Lieutenant Tom Norris lying in the sand. The bullet entered through Norris's left eye and exited through his forehead. Brain matter is visible. Blood pools in the sand around his head. One of the South Vietnamese soldiers saw it happen, saw Norris get shot, saw him go down. The Vietnamese soldier reached Thornton seconds ago with the news. Tommy's dead. Mike's missing in action. Thornton looks at his lieutenant, at the devastating wound, at the blood, at the stillness. Around him, 75 North Vietnamese soldiers are closing in, overrunning their position. The beach is 400 yards away. The only chance of survival is to run. Now, Thornton makes a decision that defies every law of combat survival, every instinct for self-preservation, every rational calculation. I'm not leaving without my lieutenant. He bends down, slings Norris over his shoulder, and starts running toward the ocean through a hail of enemy fire. This is the story of the only time in over a century that one Medal of Honor recipient saved the life of another, and how both men lived to attend each other's award ceremonies. Michael Edwin Thornton was born on March 23, 1949, in Greenville, South Carolina. He grew up in Spartanburg, a small-town kid who loved sports, loved competition, loved pushing himself. In 1967, at 18 years old, Thornton graduated from Torrance High School and enlisted in the United States Navy. He wanted to be part of something elite, something that would test him. He volunteered for the SEALs, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, BUD/S, the most grueling military training program in the world, designed to break men, to find their limits and push past them. Class 49 started with 129 candidates. By the time it ended in March 1969, only 18 remained. Michael Thornton was one of them. Most new SEAL graduates went to underwater demolition teams for seasoning, learning the basics, building experience. Thornton received something different. Direct assignment to SEAL Team 1, a combat unit deploying to Vietnam. The Navy recognized something in the 19-year-old from South Carolina, an intensity, a refusal to quit, a willingness to do whatever the mission required. Thornton deployed to Vietnam and began running operations, intelligence gathering, reconnaissance, raids deep into enemy territory with Vietnamese commandos. By October 1972, American involvement in Vietnam was winding down. Most SEALs had gone home. Thornton was one of only a dozen remaining, still running missions, still gathering intelligence, still doing the job while everyone else was leaving. On October 31, 1972, Petty Officer Second Class Michael Thornton would run the mission that would define the rest of his life. The mission brief was straightforward. Gather intelligence on the Qua Viet base near the coast of Quang Tri Province, just south of the demilitarized zone. Capture prisoners if possible. The team consisted of 5 men. Lieutenant Tom Norris, the senior SEAL advisor, Petty Officer Michael Thornton, 3 South Vietnamese LDNN commandos, Lien Doc Ngoy Nia, soldiers who fight under the sea, the Vietnamese equivalent of SEALs. Thornton had worked with these Vietnamese before, trusted them. They were experienced, brave, willing to die for their country. Norris was legendary among SEALs. 6 months earlier, in April 1972, he'd pulled off one of the most daring rescues of the war, the Ba T-21 Bravo mission, rescuing Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Iseal Hambleton and First Lieutenant Mark Clark from deep behind enemy lines. Over 30,000 North Vietnamese soldiers were in the area. 14 Americans died in various rescue attempts. 8 aircraft were lost, 2 rescuers captured, 2 more stranded. Norris went in anyway, dressed as a fisherman, paddling a sampan up the river at night, found Hambleton, brought him out, went back for Clark, brought him out too. The mission would later be immortalized in the film Beat in 21, starring Gene Hackman. Norris would receive the Medal of Honor for his actions. But on October 31, 1972, Norris hadn't received the medal yet. He was just another SEAL advisor, running another mission, doing the job. Thornton respected Norris, trusted him completely. When Norris said they were going on a recon mission near the DMZ, Thornton grabbed his gear and got on the boat. They launched from a Vietnamese Navy junk just before sunset, paddled a rubber boat toward shore, stopped a mile out, swam the rest of the way. The plan was simple. Insert at the old Qua Viet base, gather intelligence on North Vietnamese positions, capture prisoners if the opportunity presented itself, extract by sea before dawn. But the junk captain made a mistake. He dropped them too far north, not at the Qua Viet base, north of it, actually in North Vietnam, behind enemy lines. Norris and Thornton realized the error quickly. They could abort, head back to the extraction point, call the mission off. Norris made a decision. They were already here, already inserted. This was a reconnaissance mission. They'd gather what intelligence they could, then continue to their actual objective. Thornton nodded. Made sense to him. They moved inland, past North Vietnamese encampments, watching, counting, noting positions and strength, working their way through the night. As dawn approached, they found a position near the beach that looked secure, a place to hide during daylight. They'd extract that night under cover of darkness. Then everything went wrong. Two North Vietnamese soldiers appeared, a patrol, walking along the beach, heading straight toward the team's position. For a moment, it looked like the patrol would pass by without noticing them. Then the LDNN officer made a decision. He ordered his two enlisted men to capture the patrol. The Vietnamese commandos rushed forward. One NVA soldier surrendered immediately. The other ran toward the jungle, toward other North Vietnamese positions. Thornton took off after him, running. The enemy soldier was fast. Thornton was faster. He caught up and fired. The NVA soldier went down. Then Thornton heard shouting, saw movement in the jungle. About 50 North Vietnamese soldiers running toward him. They'd heard the shot. Thornton turned and ran back toward his team. The enemy followed, firing. Thornton hit the sand as bullets cracked overhead. For the next 4 hours, 5 men held off a North Vietnamese force estimated at 150 strong. Thornton and Norris moved from position to position, keeping the enemy confused about how many Americans they faced, making them think they were attacking a much larger force. Thornton took shrapnel in his back from a grenade, kept fighting. Norris called for naval gunfire support. The destroyer they contacted had been hit by North Vietnamese shore batteries. Couldn't fire. A second destroyer tried to maneuver into position, also took fire, also withdrew. Finally, the heavy cruiser USS Newport News arrived. But it couldn't fire directly at the enemy positions. Too much risk of hitting the SEAL team with friendly fire. The Newport News could provide covering fire for an extraction, but the team had to reach the beach first. Norris got on the radio, gave their position, told the Newport News to wait 5 minutes after they started moving, then fire for effect, cover their withdrawal. The team began leapfrogging toward the beach. Norris covered the rear, the most dangerous position, the last man, making sure everyone else got out. As he prepared to fire a law rocket at a group of 75 North Vietnamese soldiers attacking his position, a bullet struck him in the head. The round entered through his left eye, tore through his forehead, exited the right side of his skull. Norris dropped. One of the South Vietnamese saw it happen, saw Norris go down, saw the wound. He reached Thornton. "Tommy's dead." The words came out breathless, panicked. Thornton looked toward Norris's last position, 400 yards away. The enemy was overrunning it. In seconds, they'd be on top of Norris's body. The logical decision was clear. Norris was dead. Nothing could be done. The team had to reach the beach, had to survive, had to escape. Thornton said 4 words that would echo through SEAL history. "I'm not leaving without my lieutenant." Thornton took off running, 400 yards, through enemy fire. North Vietnamese soldiers shooting at him from multiple positions, bullets kicking up sand around his feet. He reached Norris, looked down at the wound. The whole side of his head was completely gone, brain tissue visible, blood everywhere. Thornton placed his fingers on Norris's neck, feeling for a pulse, not expecting to find one. He found one, weak, thready, but there. Tommy was alive. North Vietnamese soldiers crested the sand dune, running at Thornton's position. Thornton grabbed his rifle, dropped several. The others dove for cover. Thornton reached down, grabbed Norris, lifted him onto his shoulder. 170 pounds of dead weight. Started running toward the beach. Enemy soldiers appeared from another direction. Thornton fired one-handed, killed them. kept running, more soldiers. Thornton set Norris down, took cover, fought them off, picked Norris up again, kept moving. He reached the position where the team had left one of the wounded South Vietnamese. The man couldn't swim. Thornton looked at him, looked at Norris, made another impossible decision. He'd carry them both. Thornton inflated life vests, put one on Norris, put one on the Vietnamese soldier, dragged them both toward the water. The beach was still 300 yards away. The North Vietnamese were closing in. Thornton could hear them shouting, organizing, preparing to overrun his position. Then the world exploded. The USS Newport News opened fire. 5-minute delay had passed. 8-inch guns, massive shells screaming overhead, landing just behind Thornton's position. The concussion from a near miss picked up Thornton and threw him through the air, blew Norris off his shoulder, blew the Vietnamese soldier away from him. Thornton hit the sand hard, stunned, ears ringing, vision blurred. He shook his head, looked around, found Norris, found the Vietnamese soldier, grabbed them both, started dragging them again. 200 yards to the water, 100 yards. 50 yards. Bullets snapped past, kicked up sand. Thornton kept moving, one foot in front of the other, dragging 2 men, refusing to stop. He reached the surf, the waves, the ocean. Thornton inflated his own life vest, made sure Norris and the Vietnamese soldier were secure, started swimming. Behind him, North Vietnamese soldiers reached the beach, started firing into the water. Bullets splashed around them. Thornton kept swimming, away from shore, away from the enemy, out into the South China Sea. The swim lasted over 3 hours. Thornton kept Norris in front of him, one arm wrapped around the lieutenant, using his other arm and legs to swim. The wounded Vietnamese soldier floated nearby. Thornton had to keep watch on both men. Norris was unconscious, barely breathing, blood still seeping from the massive head wound. Thornton had bandaged it as well as he could with material from the first aid kit, but the injury was catastrophic. The Newport News had left the area. They thought everyone was dead, reported as much. The Vietnamese junk that had dropped them off was still nearby, patrolling, looking for survivors, but they'd picked up one of the LDNN soldiers. He reported that the 2 Americans were dead. Thornton was alone in the ocean, 3 hours, supporting 2 wounded men, swimming away from shore, hoping someone would find them. His arms burned, his legs cramped, salt water stung his wounds. He kept swimming. Then he saw it, the junk, patrolling in the distance. Thornton grabbed Norris's AK-47, the one he'd carried the entire way. He fired several rounds into the air. The junk heard the shots, turned, headed toward them. They were pulled aboard, soaking, exhausted. Thornton was still conscious, still alert, still protecting Norris. The junk transported them to the USS Newport News. Thornton carried Norris to the operating room. The ship's doctor examined the wound. "There's no way he's gonna make it," the doctor said. Thornton looked at the doctor, at Norris, at the impossible wound that should have killed him instantly. "He's gonna make it," Thornton said. "Lieutenant Tom Norris didn't die. The doctors said he would, said the injury was too severe, said even if he survived, he'd never have a meaningful life." Norris proved them wrong. He spent 3 years in hospitals, underwent numerous reconstructive surgeries, lost his left eye, lost part of his skull that had to be replaced with a metal plate, but he lived, and eventually he recovered. On October 15, 1973, less than a year after the mission, President Richard Nixon presented Petty Officer Michael Thornton with the Medal of Honor at the White House. Tom Norris was still at Bethesda Naval Hospital, recovering from his wounds. The doctors forbade him from attending the ceremony. Too risky, too much strain. The night before the ceremony, Thornton showed up at the hospital. He and Norris had a conversation. The details remained between them. The next day, Norris was at the White House. Thornton had spirited him out the back door of the hospital, against doctors' orders. 2 SEALs doing what SEALs do. The citation was read, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty while participating in a daring operation against enemy forces." President Nixon placed the medal around Thornton's neck. Thornton stood at attention. Norris watched, smiling, alive, because one petty officer refused to leave without his lieutenant. Almost 3 years later, On March 6, 1976, it was Norris's turn. President Gerald Ford presented Lieutenant Tom Norris with the Medal of Honor for his actions during the BAT-21 rescue mission in April 1972. Michael Thornton stood to the side, watching, smiling, pride written across his face. For the first time in over 100 years, one Medal of Honor recipient had saved the life of another. Both men lived to attend each other's ceremonies. The story of Michael Thornton and Tom Norris became legendary in the SEAL community. Norris eventually recovered enough to fulfill his childhood dream. He joined the FBI, spent years in hostage rescue operations, elite units, high-risk missions. The head injury didn't slow him down. Thornton continued serving in the Navy, became an instructor at BUD/S, teaching new SEAL candidates the principles he'd lived. Never quit, never leave a man behind. He received a commission in 1982 as a limited duty officer, retired from the Navy as a lieutenant in 1992 after 25 years of service. Both men remained close friends, brothers, bonded by what happened on that beach in Vietnam. In November 2013, officials dedicated a 10-foot bronze statue at the National Navy UDT-SEAL Museum in Fort Pierce, Florida. The statue depicts Thornton carrying Norris on his shoulders. H. Ross Perot commissioned the statue. Paul Moore of Norman, Oklahoma, sculpted it. Rick Kaiser, executive director of the museum, spoke at the dedication. It was the only time this century when one Medal of Honor winner was rescued by a person who would eventually get a Medal of Honor for rescuing him. Both men attended the ceremony. Both men spoke. Neither claimed to be a hero. Both insisted they were just doing their job. "I feel honored, but I'm not a hero," Thornton said. "This medal belongs to every man and woman who died serving their country. I feel honored to represent them." The legacy of October 31st, 1972 extends beyond two men and two medals. It's about the standard, the sacred principle that defines special operations forces. You never leave a man behind. When the South Vietnamese soldier told Thornton that Norris was dead, the logical decision was to escape, to survive, to live, to fight another day. Thornton heard the information, processed it, made a different decision. "I'm not leaving without my lieutenant." 400 yards through enemy fire, 75 North Vietnamese soldiers closing in. A man with half his head blown off, no chance of survival. Thornton went anyway. He found Norris alive, barely, carried him to the beach, fought off enemy soldiers, grabbed a wounded Vietnamese soldier who couldn't swim, dragged them both into the ocean, swam for 3 hours, supporting two men, refusing to quit, refusing to let either one die. That's not training. That's not tactics. That's character. That's the refusal to accept that your brother is gone when there's any chance at all he might be saved. Tom Norris lived 50 more years because Michael Thornton wouldn't leave without him. He had a career with the FBI. He married. He built a life. All because a 23-year-old petty officer from South Carolina made an impossible decision on a beach in Vietnam. The doctors said Norris would die. He lived. They said he'd never recover. He recovered. They said he couldn't attend Thornton's Medal of Honor ceremony. Thornton broke him out of the hospital. 2 SEALs, 2 Medals of Honor, 2 men who refused to accept limits, who refused to leave each other behind. That's the story behind the statue, behind the medals, behind the legend. "I'm not leaving without my lieutenant." 4 words that meant Tom Norris got to live, got to recover, got to attend his rescuer's Medal of Honor ceremony, got to watch Thornton receive recognition for saving his life, and 3 years later, Thornton got to watch Norris receive his own Medal of Honor, got to see his lieutenant stand in the White House and be recognized for his own heroism. Both men alive, both men honored, because one refused to leave the other behind. Michael Thornton lives in Texas now, retired, quiet life. He doesn't talk much about Vietnam unless asked. Tom Norris lives in Idaho, also retired, also quiet. Both men avoid the spotlight when possible. But in the SEAL community, their story is told to every new class. Every BUD/S candidate learns about October 31st, 1972, learns about the mission that went wrong, the firefight that lasted 4 hours, the lieutenant who was shot in the head, the petty officer who ran 400 yards through enemy fire to bring him home, learns about the swim, the 3 hours in the ocean, the refusal to quit, the refusal to accept that a brother was gone. That's what it means to be a SEAL, not the physical training, not the weapons skills, not the tactics. It's the standard, the principle, the sacred duty. You never leave a man behind. Michael Thornton proved it on October 31st, 1972. He ran through hell, carried his lieutenant on his shoulder, swam for 3 hours, saved 2 lives. Tom Norris lived to prove that the doctors were wrong, that impossible injuries can be survived, that a man can lose half his skull and still build a career, still live a full life, still honor the service. Both men lived to receive the Medal of Honor. Both attended each other's ceremonies. Both remain friends decades later. The only time in over a century that one Medal of Honor recipient saved another. That's Michael Thornton. That's Tom Norris. That's the SEAL standard. I'm not leaving without my lieutenant. 4 words that changed 2 lives. That saved 1 man from death. That honored the brotherhood that defines special operations. 4 words that every SEAL learns, every SEAL remembers, every SEAL lives by, because some standards are sacred, some duties transcend survival, some brothers are worth dying for. Michael Thornton knew that. He proved it. He carried Tom Norris off that beach and into history. 2 Navy SEALs, 2 Medals of Honor, 1 impossible rescue, 1 standard that will never change, never leave a man behind.